not around anymore because of Sirius and Spotify and other outlets for music. So Zach and I have had to pivot a lot in the last 14 years. I mean, it's not unlike other areas of government, but it's been huge shifts in the way people communicate, and it's challenged us to continue to move forward and find other ways to communicate with our residents. It's not that things are bad now, they're just, I guess, different. So our name, the official name, is the Public Information and Marketing Office, but we don't do marketing. So while this is a transparent program, just to be transparent, we don't market. We hardly have the time to do that. What we do is we do a lot of things. We are into traditional media. That's what I basically work with. Zach is our social media king. We have an action center, which is the place that people contact to get problems solved in their neighborhoods or around the city, potholes, high grass and weeds, things like that. We have our website, okc.gov. We handle employee communications, and that's been an incredibly difficult thing in the last year with COVID and trying to communicate everything we've needed to communicate with changes in city policies due to the pandemic. We also manage the city's video and graphic design aspects, as well as special event permitting. And we also, if that's not enough, we have a print shop in our department. But one of the things that Zach is really good at, I have to say, is, and we all are, but him in particular is advocating for our residents. I advocate for the media and our employees, trying to get information out, information that's timely, information that's correct, and push that out to the different people that need it. So, you know, our goal is to build trust, of course. It's always our goal. Can we do it? Like, it's been a challenge. It is a challenge. And are we fabulous at what we do? Probably not. I'd love to have more people, but we do our best and we work really hard. We spend a lot of time doing this. All right, so there's our footprint. And I was talking about this a little bit earlier. One of our challenges in communicating with our residents is that Oklahoma City is 621 square miles. Our size can make transparency and accountability challenging because of all of the different organizations and agencies that work within our boundaries. We have a lot of municipalities. We've got tons of school districts. We just serve a diverse group of people. So if someone reports a dead animal or a pothole on the Kilpatrick, then we report that, or we will report that on the residents' behalf to the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. If the carcass, if the animal that's dead is on a state highway, then we have to deal with ODOT. If it's on a city street, then of course that's us, unless it's certain city streets like Northwest Expressway, and portions of that are in Oklahoma City, and portions of it are ODOT's. So it's not always cut and dry. And I have to say, Larry, you know this, but many of the people that live in Oklahoma City don't know they live here. They think they live in Edmond or Moore or any other city but Oklahoma City. So trying to educate people about where they live is a big challenge for us. It's one of the best steps, the first steps that we have to trying to communicate what our government does.
Hey, Kristy, I just want to interject a little recent story that you'll probably remember. And it comes down to the whole accountability and transparency. And so, which we'll talk about a little bit about social justice issues and everything that's going on nationally. But, you know, we had a resident on social really do a threaded Twitter string, just knocking our city manager for living in Yukon. And he had a trusted source that says that he doesn't even live in Oklahoma City. You know, he he's making decisions for the residents of Oklahoma City, and he doesn't even live here. And so a quick search, and that's one of the things that I like to do, is to tell people they actually live in Oklahoma City by checking their trash can. But I looked on the Oklahoma County Assessor, and he didn't pop up there. And so I got his address and typed it in and showed him living in Yukon. And so, like, I shoot Kristy and our Michael Kimball, who's a staff writer, and I say, I know he doesn't, but it's looking like he lives in Yukon. And so I dig on Canadian County and get his exact address, and he has a Yukon address. But if you put in his complete address, he does live in Oklahoma City. And so, I respond back to the resident, Oklahoma City's big. Our city manager does live in Oklahoma City, has always lived in Oklahoma City. And, he went back and forth and basically called me a liar. And so I explained that most people on the outskirts think they live in another town. And, that's partially the real estate business. They do sell Edmond, they do sell the Village, Nichols Hills, more for their school districts, right? And so that it is a big struggle because we are so spread out. But I don't think a lot of people realize, where they spend their money and who represents them and all of that stuff is, they do live in Oklahoma City. So in the end of that little tangent, he had thanked me and he goes, well, I guess, wow, those old city fathers and mothers, they sprawled us out a little bit. And, in the end, he realized it, but, it took about 2 hours to convince him and explain, hey, we,
is that Jess Eddy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk a little bit about him in a little bit.
All right. But sorry to interrupt you, Yager. So yeah, that's just a little story about our city limits.
I think this next slide is yours.
Okay, so kind of on the same thing. So this year, man, and then I know everyone on this call has dealt with this year in their own ways, but when it comes to communicating and trust in government, and it's just not this last year, it's been building up, right? It's been very difficult, and it trickles down to local governments. I mean, because I always say the reason I enjoy my job and I will hopefully be here for a while is because local government has a direct impact on people, and we can make change faster than any government body. But these last couple years, whether it be like I mentioned, the social justice issues, COVID, the political environment, both on the federal and state level, has made it extra challenging. I would say in my 14 years of communicating, and 12 of those being in the social realm, I've never felt the tone, the tension, the anger, and just the trouble of explaining things more than I do now. And this goes back to a baseline of facts, right? You look back, and there was a point that we all started from a baseline of truth, a baseline of facts, a baseline of information, whether that be a newspaper, whether that be, like Kristy was mentioning, television. And we don't have that anymore. And you're seeing that in misinformation about vaccines. The truth behind, or what is truth behind, federal events that happened, things that are said by elected officials. And that.
Zach, you are frozen. And can you all hear me?
that impacts
There
the
we go.
trust and transparency potholes. Oh no.
Yeah.
So can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back.
I'm back. You missed this very, like, I
I'm
summed up
sure
everything I
you were
was going to
brilliant.
say. It was beautiful. So did you hear baseline of facts?
Yeah.
Okay. So did you hear that this is the hardest time of communicating? Did you hear?
You stopped at potholes.
Oh, thank you. That thing is so simple as what we do when the action center. I supervise the action center as well.
All right. So I'll take over while he's frozen.
Which
but
is the
in this-
311 or the complaint line. And wow. Can you hear me now? Okay. Let's try this again. I'm going to turn all my streaming off.
While he's doing that, there's a picture in the middle of that screen that we had on of Mayor Holt. And I just have to say, his leadership through the last few years has been key to building confidence, and he obviously will reach across every aisle to try to talk to people. He has compassion for people, and it's always showing in his social media responses. And I don't know when he sleeps. I don't know that he does, because you can see him responding to his critics at all times in day or night. And he does it with grace and compassion every time. So I do want to credit Mayor Holt for being available, accessible, and always correct, amazingly, weirdly correct with the information that he provides to residents.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to turn my video off, which
You look better that way.
I do, yeah. Thank you. And so I just wanted to quickly show this this chart and kind of go along. I said about misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. And Kristy and I we've been around. One of the things that's different in our organization is we kind of have been here from the start of social media and the new way we communicate with people. And so we've had the same tone, the same voice in that realm. And misinformation has popped up in the city's local stream more over the last year and a half than it has. Misinformation obviously is just unintentional, just bad information. Something you heard from your uncle or you shared on Facebook.
This never happens.
Your aunt, and you call it, and we're seeing that in political.
Or Zach.
I know this never happens. I bet I've spent 1 billion hours with him over Zoom in the last year, and I've never had the luck to have him muted until now, when it's not lucky at this point.
No. Well.
All right. So you guys understand misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, and he and Michael Kimball in our office spend a lot of time straightening people out and trying to provide correct information to them. There are a lot of people that just love to provide disinformation and spread it. And so you kind of need warriors and heroes that will step up and compassionately and kindly correct that misinformation. So, in our book, transparency and accountability is every city department's job. We have a certain role in it, but it starts with the person that answers the phone, and it goes all the way. I should say it starts with the city manager. And in Oklahoma City, we've been fortunate to have a string of city managers, starting with Jim Couch and now with Craig Freeman, that support this transparency and accountability and believe in it. So it starts there, but it is everybody's job. And it's to me, transparency is a powerful weapon against corruption. And when our processes are transparent, then it's difficult for corruption to thrive. That's one reason why I've worked here for so long, because I've never been challenged with my ethical, I've never been asked to do something that's ethically wrong in my whole time here in 24 years here. So that's felt good. And, you know, I think everybody's struggling right now, particularly in their police departments. And because policing has evolved so much since 2017, since the unrest in Ferguson, and most recently with the death of George Floyd. And then here in Oklahoma City, we also had the death of Stavian Rodriguez in our own community, and Benny, who was a person who was experiencing homelessness. So a lot of times our police department, you know, if our police department is considered to not be transparent or accountable, that really reflects on the entire organization. And they've got some big challenges ahead in probably every city's police force. I know our police force I shouldn't say police force, trying to get rid of that word. Police department has recently hired a civilian to help them with communications. And that has really changed things in the last few weeks. He's new and is making some good changes and recommendations. Also, they've hired a videographer to help them tell their story better and faster. So those are two big steps that our police department has taken to be more accountable and transparent. And our fire department is following suit. In the budget this year, they have made a request for a videographer to help not only tell their story, but to do other things within the department. So I think that through videography, there's a good opportunity for a lot of people to communicate better with their employees and their residents. Let's see. Okay. So another example of transparency and accountability has happened a lot lately. I don't know, Ian, if you've been a part of this, but our beat reporter, who is Bill Crum with the Oklahoman, has been asking for budget presentations for a very long time. And we complete our budgets around November, December, and turn them in. And at a certain point, they're considered complete, and Bill is always putting in open records requests for those, and we do provide them to him. It's not comfortable for us to do that because we haven't communicated with the council what our budget is, but when he asks for things and we're required to turn them over, we do. Sometimes we sit down with them and have an off-the-record conversation about what the budget has, what our concerns are, and that's usually the city manager. It's a relationship with the city manager and him that's really, really important to telling our story. So he actually, you know, asked for everything early on, and we try to provide. So it's providing direct access to people, access to records, quality. The website needs to have all the information you need on it. Social media responses, prompt media responses, and I try to always respond to reporters within 30 minutes of calling. And I get usually about 2 media calls a day. Used to be a lot more back when the Oklahoman was at full throttle, but a little less now. We have to be honest. And so when we make mistakes here at the city, we will own up to them or try to own up to them and be open with our media and apologize for those mistakes. We follow through with the things that we promise our residents and do what we say we're going to do. Zach, are you still? Okay, there. Thank you.
I think I'm still here.
Okay. Do you want to try this slide?
Yeah. So you know, text me if I drop, Kristy. So you know, we moved and we're trying to move from residents to people. So, we serve on our 622 square miles. We recognize that not all of our residents are citizens. And so being an inclusive
Are U.S.
community,
citizens of the United States?
yes. Equity and inclusion is important. And especially, I heard Kristy mention Mayor Holt, his One OKC, it's in the spirit of that inclusion. But I want to kind of give an example of equity and when it comes to services. And it's something in no matter the size of your town or city, it's something you can think about. And it directly impacts the who we serve. And so since we manage the Action Center, we see a lot of requests come in. And there's certain communities inside our city limits that are underserved or not served equally as others. And a lot of that is access to information. If one neighborhood is plugged in, whether that's with the neighborhood officers or whether that's with the Action Center, their elected officials, they know how to contact the city because we're a very reactive organization. We're too big to be proactive, but so we'll get stuff done. Let's just say somebody in Ward 8, which is North Oklahoma City, reports a pothole. We go out in a certain amount of time and get that filled. But there's certain parts of the city that they're working 2 jobs to afford rent. They have, kids that they're trying to, do education. They don't know who to call. You have the state agencies, you have federal agencies that they may be dealing with. They don't know who does what. And so when it comes to communication and telling people how to get things done, how to engage, how to access information, there's a barrier of equity that we create because we are a reactive city. And this is something that we're always working to improve. We're always recognizing that, we know that some people don't know how to contact the Action Center, don't know about okc.gov. They leave the C out and connection is unstable. Maybe it's my time to kind of talk tight instead of write tight. But so this equity is really my focus, is what over the 14 years, the equity of our service, how we serve people. Not everyone's on a landline. We also manage the city's franchise agreements for Cox Cable. And at the start of the pandemic, when more people were working from home and more people were doing school from home, I took so many heartbreaking calls from people that lived in certain parts of Oklahoma City, but couldn't get high-speed internet to have Zoom calls. And I feel like I'm experiencing that right now. This is the first time I've had unstable internet. But, these people that were scared because they had the opportunity to work from home, but were on their cell phones, and, it's this equity and struggle that kind of is what drives me now. And if you don't have that kind of direct line of communication, then or know the access to information, you struggle, and there is inequity there. And so that's kind of we are taking steps to alleviate some of that. We're looking at different things, but when it comes to transparency, when it comes to trust in government, we have to serve people equitably. Did I miss anything there, Yager?
Nope.
So this is a really important thing. So to bridge the gap from how people get information and why it's important, these are called need statements. And one of the recent projects that I worked on, we really kind of took a human-centered approach to solving problems in the city. And then a lot of it was community policing. It was how you feel safe in your neighborhood. And we developed these need statements, and it really kind of touches on a lot of this stuff that we do as city employees and how we could better understand our residents, to empathize with them. I need to trust my neighbors and I need to trust the city to do their part. When they tell us something, they need to know that we're going to act on that. I need to know what is expected of me and my neighbors and by the city. That could be code issues. That could be, I need to mow my yard before it gets, 10 inches. I need to know my voice is heard and my opinions matter. Not that we just allow people the opportunity to say something to us, but we actually listen and take those thoughts and their issues into consideration to solve problems. I need to feel safe. And this is a big one, because you could see a police officer driving down your street, and that can make you feel safe. But in some communities, you see a police officer driving down your street and you don't feel safe, and kind of thinking of it that way and how we serve and empathizing with people's different experiences is a start to really bridging that trust through action. I need access to understandable and actionable city information. Kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier. I need to know, to be aware of when things are going to happen in my neighborhood. And that's hard. We all know with bond issues, the way we fund major infrastructure projects, that just because a bond issue passes doesn't mean next year, the road's going to get tore up and you're going to get a brand new road. It could be a decade. It could be longer, right? And so, yeah, it could be 20 years. And so we
still doing
we need
2007 stuff. So
yeah. And so, that need to be aware when things are going to happen is really important. I need my neighborhood and concerns to be valued equally. And this is a big thing when it comes to serving, people, the MAPS project, that was, if you don't know what MAPS is, okc.gov/maps or MAPS 3. We get a lot of complaints about, oh, the South Side doesn't get served as well as the downtown, sorry, I have a puppy that is 4 months old and is 42 pounds. And so he's barking right now. I need to know the city cares about my neighborhood. And I need for me and my neighbors to feel pride in the community, which that's really important. And then there's I need to know why those orange cones are on my street and how long they're going to be there. Real quick, and I'll go over this. This is a good little story about the Action Center and why it's important, and why, when it comes to trust in government, it's just not the city manager. It's just not the people taking the phone calls or the elected officials. It's everyone. And so this is a story about a raccoon in Toronto. And it goes back to 2015, but I think it's a really good story to tell about how trust in government plays on anyone who either answers the phone, customer service, and deals with the public. So at 9 a.m., someone tweets out to Toronto's 311 system, hey, there's a dead raccoon on the sidewalk. So this is kind of how the city, we do things too. Hey, thanks for letting us know. They responded shortly after, like less than 10 minutes, or around 12 minutes. So, and this is kind of like, if you see in the middle of the screen here, they say, hey, thanks. Poor fella had a rough night. So 6 hours, it kind of starts going viral. Other people start tweeting it. This dead raccoon on the sidewalk in Toronto, people start building a memorial service for it. And you can see this puts city services under a microscope, because everyone has a camera now. Everyone's a reporter. Everyone can post something and just have the same effect sometimes as, your old beat reporters at the Oklahoma and the Tulsa World, any other local paper that was out there. And so, people are starting tweeting. The city council person jumps in. Hey, please have staff pick up this raccoon, and so you got an elected official now, you got 311, and you got multiple residents that are tweeting stuff out. And this Action Center said, this is just disrespectful. Hey, animal services are notified again. So some time, more time goes on, becomes a little hashtag dead raccoon Toronto. It's 3:50 now. When you see these things, you know how the speed of sometimes, when you have one animal welfare officer, and I don't know Toronto's staff levels, but it can take us a while to get to these issues. So it's getting dark, as you can see from the picture, and this person says, sleep well, my sweet prince. People loved you and remembered you. And you have people signing cards now for this dead raccoon. Now he's got a joint in his hand here, one last ride. He's got his picture, more cards, more people tweeting. 12 hours, poor guy's still there. And so the council person jumps back on. The sidewalk memorial is growing. He's still tweeting. It's going on and on. We got tea lights now. It's 10:46 and this raccoon is still there. And you can see the number of likes and tweets and comments that are happening. We got a donation box for the proper burial now. And this is all just picking up a dead animal from a street, right? Well, at 11 p.m. that night, a city truck pulls up to collect the raccoon in the memorial. Someone had a camera, they're taking pictures, and can you hear that audio that was just playing?
No.
Let me Zoom settings. It's okay. So I'm just going to play this. And so this city worker, do you think this city worker knew that how viral this was on social media? He shows up to pick a dead raccoon up. There's tea lights, a candle, and tons of people watching this being removed. And he had the opportunity, if he had a bad day, someone, he could have popped off to him, said something, and he was filmed, right? And so not only did it take 12 hours for them to pick this animal up, luckily this guy had a good sense of humor. He didn't kind of say anything on camera, and people went and picked up all the memorial. And so the next day, though, let me switch over. Hold on here. I clicked on this wrong thing. There was the crime tape. And so, just little things when it comes to trust, when it comes to doing what we say we're going to do, being responsive, can be seen in this little story about a poor little raccoon in Toronto. So I really like this story and telling it, and just showing how service, showing how all the things we do are under a microscope. Just like I said that, local government is very effective at doing things, but we're also under the microscope because so many people are watching us. And so just kind of keep that in mind when you're kind of walking up on a situation, everyone has their phone out, and just know that you can become the next raccoon, not dead, but just viral, I guess I should say. So turn it back over to Kristy. Glad I made it through that freezing.
That was awesome. I love that story. It's a perfect example that it kind of blew up there in Toronto, but it happens every day in our city on a small level, I would say. And I don't know, we always kind of have a saying here in City Hall that it takes years and years and years to build confidence within our residents, and just one incident could totally tear that down. So we are very protective of the confidence that we have with our residents, and we try to tell stories and to prove that we're doing what we promise. And you'll see on the screen that we've got the logo for the first maps is that yellow logo on the left at the bottom. And then we had maps for kids, we had maps 3, now we're working on maps 4. And we work with a PR firm because the MAPS programs are just so big that there's a lot to tackle and unpack within them. And it's becoming bigger and bigger as we grow as a city and trying to include more people in our decision making. And I think that's one of the keys that we've had in accountability and transparency is the fact that we do include many residents in all of our programs. We have hundreds, probably like 500 to 600, 700 residents that sits on boards, trusts, and commissions to help set our policies. They're the ones that are watching what we do and helping us with provide government at a better level for our residents. But it's critical to us that when we undergo a project that we do it right and we do it on time. We try to do it within budget. And if we're not able to hit those marks, to be open and transparent about it as we go along. So we are about to embark on MAPS 4. They had one of their board meetings today, and that is like 16 projects and in all parts of Oklahoma City. So we've actually hired a PR firm that has subcontracted some PR work out to Tango PR that deals with our Latino population. And we've got a person that is African American that will help us with MAPS projects in our Black communities. And so I think that our team has to be diverse in our way we communicate to truly be transparent and accessible. So with that, and also you'll see on here, one of the key things that we do as a city, and we've done it for, I think, probably 15 years now, is every year, no matter what, we send out a survey every summer and ask residents what they think. And it goes to a statistical group, a random group of people. And it really is a good measurement for us about how well we're doing. And over the past 15 years, the number one concern of our residents is, does anybody not from Oklahoma City know what this is? It's probably the same thing in your city too, street condition. And when we started this, the satisfaction with street condition was like 11%. And believe it or not, over the last 2 years, that's been improving. And that's been, and the reason that that's been improving is because we know now that that's their number one concern. And we've responded with projects like Better Streets, Safer City, and penny sales tax for streets and things like that to try to improve our streets and make people feel better about where they live. I think that's all I have. Zach, do you have anything? You there?
Yeah, no, I'm here. No, I'd like one thing to Kristy. We know that trust continues because all of these elections that you see on the bottom continue to be passed. And, there are some communities, in the state and in nation that have trouble passing things. I mean, we were there at one point. It took a long time. And so that brand, and, why Kristy mentioned the agencies that are helping us communicate is because we know that's a brand now. And we know that we have to, tell people that we are delivering what we promise. And that in itself is the reason we can continue to pass different MAPS programs, bond issues, and that we're helping even, last year and the year or last couple of years, we partnered with the school system to help manage some of their projects to kind of build that confidence for them. And so doing what we say we're going to do is important. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you guys. If anyone has any questions or points of discussion, we got a few minutes, I think, before we start our awards. I'll just say that is a great raccoon story. I was not aware of that. but it's really good. Not just funny, but does really illustrate just the spotlight that all that sort of run-of-the-mill stuff that people wouldn't even take notice of anymore can really highlight how quickly a city does or does not do things.
You know, Ian, I'll tell you my my rooster story sometimes that it's not, probably wouldn't get an award for that one. But I'll tell you that
video of it, so don't
yeah,
we?
I have audio and video of it.
Zach chased the rooster around the neighborhood. It was classic.
Yeah, went and live streamed and forgot I was on live stream. So I'll tell you more about that. If anyone wants my email address, zach.e.nash, and I'll tell it to you offline.
All your burning rooster related questions, Zach will answer them.
Thanks for having us. And
yeah, and I'll wait for my award later.
I won't, because I'm freezing up. I'm gonna have to reset my router.
But thanks for inviting us to speak. We appreciate it. And I feel like all of the cities in Oklahoma City do a very good job at being transparent. And so I just applaud everybody for their efforts.
Larry, did you have something?
Hey, just another observation. In fact, we just had it yesterday that speaks to the mistrust, I think. Yesterday, our new mayor and I had a lunch meeting with Senator Langford, who happened to be in town from Washington. And one of the things we talked to him about was polarization, how we are so divided, not just nationally, but we see it locally too. We see it primarily, I think, on land use issues. But we asked him about the potential for compromise on various things. And when we talk about it locally too, he said, frankly, from his perspective, he doesn't even use the word compromise anymore. He uses the phrase common ground, because just the suggestion of compromise implies weakness to some and a bad outcome. And when we get to that point, whether it's nationally or locally, and again, for us, it's mainly land use issues, but when we get to the point where we can't even talk about trying to give and take a little, to me, it's a really sad example of polarization, and that certainly feeds to the mistrust. So that's my observation.
That's really interesting. Sad.
It is sad. It's very sad.
I mean, we're all, I mean, even recently you look at mass mandate meetings, you look at any of that happen. I mean, for anyone that's, you know, from Broken Arrow, Yukon, all the, I mean, it's things are polarized. And I mean, I see it, I read it, and we experiencing it. And you know, that's the whole thing going back to, I think compromise is a good thing. I mean, common ground and compromise. Yeah.
It's good to have elected officials too that will stand in the middle and use common sense when they make decisions and not make decisions based on their political affiliation.
You know, and I will say that Oklahoma City and most, you know, we are nonpartisan. I mean, obviously that seeps in these days, you know, on some levels. That, you know, that is a positive thing in my opinion, that nonpartisan elected officials, because we have to remember we're serving so many different kinds of people. We're serving, you know, and we have, you know, eight council members representing huge parts of the city that are diverse, right? And so, you know, compromises and common ground's important. Yeah, compromise more than common ground, I will say.
Anyone else? Any other questions for Kristy or Zach?
Well, thanks, Ian. We appreciate it.
Yeah, if that's it, thank you guys very much. I knew you would you do a great job, and I'm sorry the technical difficulties Zach had, but we made our way through it. And I definitely learned some new stuff, so I hope everyone else did as well. So thank you, guys. All right. Well, now that the webinar is over, we can get to the second part of our event today, which is handing out some of these awards that ASPA has. And so we have 4 awards that we're going to give out. There is the Public Administrator of the Year Award, which we give out one of those each year, and it goes to an individual who has really demonstrated integrity and excellence in public service. And so we have one of those we'll give out. We have a Distinguished Public Service Award, which is similar to Public Administrator of the Year in terms of the criteria, but we just hope to give out more than one of those a year as you know, the great work that public servants do across the state becomes known to us. We like to recognize those people when we can. So we have one Distinguished Public Service Award. We have a Lifetime Achievement Award, which is a new one for us. And that just recognizes a public servant over the contributions they've made over the course of their career. And then finally, the 4th award, which is also a new one, is the Corey Atkinson Organizational Award. And that goes to an ASPA member who has done a fantastic job in service to ASPA and to the chapter. And it is named after, I believe, a late president of our chapter, Corey Atkinson, who was really instrumental in getting the chapter kickstarted again. So I will try to order these in such a way that the people who are on the call and might be joining us later can have a chance to accept them and say a few words if they'd like. So I think the first one that we will do is going to be the Lifetime Achievement Award. And before I give that out, I will say that we are not going to short shrift people here. We will have a nice physical award at some point that we will send out. We're getting those made as we speak, so I don't have them yet. But so the Lifetime Achievement Award goes to Larry Stevens, who is the city manager with the city of Edmond. And Larry has been with the city of Edmond for almost 20 years now. He has been active in many professional organizations over the course of his career, including the International City County Management Association, or ICMA, the Oklahoma City Metro City Managers Group, the National League of Cities, and the Innovations Group. He also serves as a board member on the City Management Association of Oklahoma, as well as the Emergency Medical Services Authority, or EMSA, as people may know it. Larry was the 2007 City Manager of the Year. That award is given out by the City Management Association of Oklahoma. And I know that Larry, throughout the course of his career, has really helped to mentor and develop the careers of a lot of public servants in local government. And so for that reason, we're recognizing him. He, of course, has been in Edmond as it has continued to grow throughout the decades, really incredibly, into what is now Oklahoma's 5th largest city. And in the nomination for Larry, it mentioned in particular his work on fostering diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, both within the city of Edmond and across the broader community, working with different civic organizations. And so we are very pleased to present the first Lifetime Achievement Award that the chapter has given out to Larry. And Larry, if you'd like to say a few words, we'd love to hear from you.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Obviously, I'm very honored and humbled by the recognition. I think when you talk about Lifetime Achievement Award, part of that means you've got to be fairly old. Because you've been around for a while, but or maybe near the end of your career, which is true in my case. But I do very much appreciate that. I strongly believe that public service is a calling, and I have been blessed throughout my career by great city management mentors. I've been blessed to work with tremendous people in all the different communities I've been in. And the vast majority of all the city council members I've worked with have been also very, very good to work with. I want to give a special thanks to my wife, Kay. She's been very supportive, and she's made a ton of sacrifices over the years as we've moved from city to city and just the requirements of the profession. But I think we can genuinely say we've enjoyed all the communities that we've been in. And you know, beyond that, I'm not a believer in things happening by chance. I think things happen for a purpose. And I'm talking about faith. And I think he's blessed me throughout my life beyond measure. And I know where the credit lies. So I'm very appreciative, very thankful, very humbled, and I'm done. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, Larry. We're really honored to be able to present that to you, and you're certainly very deserving. All right, next up, I will present the Public Administrator of the Year Award. So as I mentioned before, one of those goes out every year to a public servant in Oklahoma who has really just exhibited very high standards of service to the public and integrity and leadership. And so that award this year goes to Dr. Deborah Gist. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. Dr. Deborah Gist, who is the superintendent of Tulsa Public Schools. And Dr. Gist is the graduate of many great institutions over the course of her life, but I'm sure she would say she most proudly graduated from Memorial High School, first in Tulsa. And she would go on to earn degrees in early childhood education from the University of Oklahoma, a master's in that from the University of South Florida, a master's in public administration from the Harvard University Kennedy School of Government, and would eventually get her doctorate in education leadership from the University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Gist started her career in education as an elementary school teacher, and she would later go on to serve in the District of Columbia's education system for a few years as a state education officer, and later as the first state superintendent for the district in Washington, D.C. After that, she went to Rhode Island to be the Commissioner of Education for the state of Rhode Island. And during her time there, she oversaw advancements in student achievement and increased graduation rates. And then since 2015, Dr. Gist has been the superintendent of Tulsa Public Schools. And of course, TPS is the second largest public school district in Oklahoma. It has over 33,000 students, over 75 different schools. And for this award, you know, it could go to any number of people who over the course of the pandemic have served very bravely, and certainly everyone in education as well. And so Dr. Gist and her team in Tulsa have helped to steer the district through the pandemic, balancing the competing needs of in-person instruction while limiting the spread of the virus among students and staff. And they've had to exhibit real bravery in doing this, I think, at times having to resist political pressure to stray from their plan and maybe open earlier than they had wanted. But they remained committed, I think, first and foremost to the safety and security of their students. And that commitment was recognized by the U.S. Department of Education when they had Dr. Gist speak during the National Safe School Reopening Summit. And during that summit, Dr. Gist spoke of the adverse impact that the pandemic has had on economically disadvantaged populations and minority populations, and how in Tulsa, such a large share of all the students are made up from those communities, and how, really promoting their safety and security was paramount in how they went about their work over the past year. So yes, for those reasons, we're very honored to be able to present Dr. Gist with this Public Administrator of the Year Award. And Dr. Gist, I see you're on call if you'd like to say a few words. We would love to hear from you.
Ian, thank you so much. It's so nice to meet you. I was going to say in real life, and then I realized it's not actually real life, although it's become so second nature to us. But to get to see you on video when we've only exchanged emails, thank you. First of all, I'm just so incredibly grateful. I also want to say congratulations to you, Larry. It was really wonderful getting to hear about your work, and having worked for DC government and the city manager there, I have a little bit of an appreciation for the kind of work that you've spent your career doing. So congratulations to you. Very impressive and so wonderful to learn about. You know, I think about, as someone who is a public servant, I don't know that there could be anything better than to be honored by public administrators. And you know, you think about like all the roles that folks play, especially during this pandemic, and our public health leaders, folks at the state. I just got off the phone with some folks in the Department of Mental Health, and you know, being in public administration anywhere is a joy and a challenge. Being a public administrator in Oklahoma has its particular set of challenges, just because of I think there isn't the same kind of like commitment to being making sure that public services receive the resources that we need. So I'm completely confident that I am among friends and colleagues who understand the challenges that we face every day to serve those we serve in whatever role we sit in. And for me in education, you know, that means just like relying on our incredible teachers and our school leaders and these other public servants who just go above and beyond every single day. So I really feel incredibly honored, and I want you to know that I come here to say thank you, not just because you're recognizing me, but because I know that this recognition is really about all of Team Tulsa and what our folks have been doing for so many years, but including during this particularly challenging year. So thank you again to all of you so much. It is truly an honor. And thank you. I don't know all the roles that you all serve in, but as public administrators, I know they're important. So very grateful. Thank you.
Of course, thank you, Dr. Gist, for joining us and for saying a few words and accepting the award. All right, I think next up, I am going to present the Distinguished Public Service Award. So as I mentioned earlier, the criteria for that are similar to the Public Administrator of the Year. We just hope to give more than one of those out a year. And so this will be the first one that we will present in 2021. And that award goes to Peggy Trice, who is a criminal investigator with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives for the U.S. Department of Justice. And she works in the Tulsa area. And Peggy is a career law enforcement investigator with the U.S. Department of Justice. And she's worked throughout her career to promote the rule of law and uphold the highest standards of criminal justice professionalism. She serves as the chair on the Oklahoma Gang Investigator Association, which is a statewide organization of law enforcement officials. And with the OGIA, she helps to provide resources to law enforcement on organized crime subjects, and has helped to organize continuing education opportunities for law enforcement personnel, and has really helped to build a professional network for law enforcement, police departments, people working for the US government involved in investigating gangs for the whole state and for law enforcement agencies to access as a resource. She's helped and worked with a lot of different community partners in the Tulsa area, including the Tulsa County Juvenile Bureau and the Tulsa Police Department, as well as the Broken Arrow Police Department, and has just done a lot of great work with the Gang Investigator Association and with connecting different law enforcement personnel throughout the state. And so we are honored to be able to present Peggy Trice with the Distinguished Public Service Award. I know that Peggy was out of town this week, so I'm not sure if she has been able to join us. But if Peggy is on the call, we would love to hear from you if you are. I don't see Peggy in the attendees list or anything, so she probably isn't able to join us. But we're very happy to be able to present that award to Peggy, and we will send it out to her. All right. Well, that brings us to the fourth and final award that we are going to give out today, and that is the Corey Atkinson Organizational Award. As I said, that goes to an ASPA member who has served the chapter over the course of the past year or two in a really extraordinary capacity. And so this is a new award, and the first one of those is going to go to Dr. Steve Housel, who serves with me on the board and officers of ASPA. He is the president-elect for the chapter this year, so he will be the president next year. And Dr. Housel is an associate professor of political science at Rogers State University. His research interests include state and local government, public policy, and historical and contemporary public administration. Dr. Housel's scholarly work includes presentations and papers given at local, regional, and national conferences. He's co-authored many journal articles, several book chapters, as well as a college textbook. And Steve has been an ASPA member for 28 years now, and he was the 2017 recipient of the chapter's Distinguished Public Service Award. And I will say that Steve has been a really invaluable resource for me and all the board members and all the other officers in providing some of that historical context to the chapter's history, being able to, help us know where we were and where we are now and where we want to go. And Steve is always a great resource for thoughtful ideas and creative solutions to things. And during the course of the past year, he's been really critical as we try to build more of a public-facing presence for the chapter and get involved in more events and reaching out to our members. And Steve really led the effort on redesigning our chapter's website, which is up now. And he had to learn a lot of new skills that he didn't necessarily know. And so it's just been a lot of work that Steve has put in on that and many other things throughout his time in ASPA. And I also am not sure if Steve is on the call. And as a very humble person that he is, he may not even want to say a few words. But Steve, if you are on the line, we would love to hear from you. All right. Well, thank you, Steve, for your service. And thank you to all of our award winners, all four of them. We're very pleased to be able to hand out 4 of these awards at this time, and hopefully more in the future too, as people's efforts become known to us and people do stuff that needs to be recognized. And thank you to Kristy and Zach earlier for giving that webinar. It was a really great presentation. I know I learned some things. I hope everyone did as well. And we hope to do more of these types of virtual events to reach out to all our different members across the state. So be on the lookout for more from us. And if you have any feedback or suggestions on events you'd like to see or ways that you would like for the board and officers of ASPA Oklahoma to engage you, certainly let us know and contact us. And I will stay on the line for a little bit, but I think everyone else is free to go. We'll get you out of here a little early today. So thanks again, everyone. Really enjoyed seeing you all and having this event.
Thank you, Ian.
Thanks, Larry.